What's going on, guys? My name is Matt and welcome to part 2 of building my epic home theater / gaming PC. I know many of you have seen part 1, but for those who haven't, I'll go ahead and give a bit of a recap. What you're looking at is a sleeper gaming PC that's meant to blend in a home theater environment. This guy started life as a broken vintage audio receiver that I bought off of eBay. I gutted it and modified it so it could hold a very capable gaming PC. Like I talked about in the previous video, this is more than just stuffing a bunch of parts in an old radio. My favorite features of this mod include the fact that the original power switch turns the system on. To do this, I found the correct contact points and soldered some jumper cables to the switch which could plug into the motherboard. Also, when the system turns on, the front frequency chart illuminates the same way it would have originally. I did this by ditching the old incandescent bulbs, cutting a larger hole for the light to pass through, and attaching an LED strip that's powered by SATA. This ended up working out really well and goes a long way in maintaining the sleeper look. These previously mentioned mods were cool, but the thing I was most proud of was the fact the original volume knob can be used to control the PC's volume and play and pause music. This was accomplished through the use of an Arduino, a rotary encoder, and a few modifications to allow the original knob to slip on. Obviously, I went over things pretty quickly, but if you want to hear about them more in depth, definitely go ahead and check out part 1, which will be linked in the description below and card above. So now that you have some understanding of what went down in part 1, let's talk about what's going on in this video. Between part 1 and now, I've done some more modding, made some aesthetic upgrades, benchmarked the system in some games, and have come up with even more plans for this guy in the future. This will not be the final video in this series. Part 3 will be the epic conclusion to this modding saga, which will most likely include me water cooling this bad boy, which should be pretty interesting because of how little experience I have with water cooling. So let's go ahead and talk about some of the new mods I've implemented. This case has some really nice looking vent cutouts through the wood that look neat, but in actuality there's only airflow under one of these sections. The metal beneath the other side is completely closed off, and the cutout in the wood was likely added just to make things look symmetrical. While this may have been fine for the original audio components, for the powerful gaming PC that's now inside it, this won't cut it. Luckily, this is a pretty simple fix. I didn't even need to measure out the section of metal I needed to remove. This is because the decades of dust that settled between the wood venting showed me exactly where I needed to remove. I used the center punch to mark the 4 corners of where I would cut. I drilled a hole in each corner wide enough for a jigsaw bit to fit through, and then I cut a rough square out. Once the main piece of metal was out, I went ahead and squared things up. I wasn't worried about making this look perfect, I just wanted to make sure the system had every chance it could to stay cool and quiet. And don't worry for all of you who asked in the last video, I will be talking about thermal performance during the benchmark section of this video. One thing I showed in the last video was how, because of FedEx, the audio receiver showed up pretty badly damaged. The side panel split off, which I had to glue back together, and there were a number of dings and scuffs. I knew I wasn't going to be able to repair all of this, but I also knew a lot of the more minor scratches and scuffs were definitely fixable. To fix this, I knew I needed to sand the outer wood down and restain it. I also needed to stain the wood feet I made in part 1. I went ahead and disassembled the entire system and brought my attention to the outer wood panel. Now, the wood you can see on the outside is a thin veneer, meaning I could sand it, but not very much. I went ahead and sanded it down with varying grits of sandpaper from around 150 to 400. This removed a lot of the shallow scuffs and scratches. I then just wiped all the dust away. While I had the outer wood ready to stain, I also got out the wood feet that I mentioned earlier. I used this Minwax stain and polyurethane combo for both. I applied a light coat onto both the feet and the outer wood shell. I ended up putting a second coat on the feet, but just stuck with one coat on the outer wood to see how I liked it. I think it turned out decent, but I may end up applying new veneer to the outside and turning it to the exact color and look that I want. Something like bamboo might look cool, but probably would take away from the vintage aesthetic. Unfortunately, I've already dinged the new finish myself, so another coat is the minimum of what needs to be done. On the stainless steel front, I decided I should try and remove some of the corrosion and try to give it some shine. I used this Flitz metal polish that ended up working decently well. I just applied it to the metal and used a soft cloth to buff it. It took away most of the corrosion and shined things up quite a bit. As a safety precaution, I went ahead and cut down the screws that were sticking out of the bottom panel from the PSU mount. These weren't in danger of scratching any surface, but definitely could do some damage to anyone trying to pick this guy up. After cut down, I filed over any of these sharp edges, again just to make things a little bit more safe. Now before we get into the benchmarks, I want to talk about what I want to do with this system, like what the end game is. So currently we have the enclosure itself with a standard ATX power supply, ITX motherboard, and full-size graphics card. All this combined with a ton of cables means there really isn't much room for extra components, especially not custom water cooling, so I need to figure out how to make room so water cooling parts could fit in. The best solution I could think of was replacing the bulky ATX PSU with a much smaller SFX unit. This would free up a lot of space, and not only this, but I think I'll use custom cables to cut down on clutter. Instead of having the long standard cables, I'll get ones that will be the perfect length to run from the PSU to the components without any extra cable slack. With all this being said, room will still be a little tight, and a lot of your standard liquid cooling components from the likes of EK and Corsair wouldn't be able to fit, but thanks to the guys over at AlphaCool, we might be able to make something work. AlphaCool has the widest selection of weird and niche water cooling products. Like, I don't think I can fit a 240mm radiator in here, but something like a thick triple 80mm radiator might do the trick. This in combination with a small pump res combo and some neat tube runs, I think that water cooling the system may actually be possible. I'm definitely a water cooling noob, so if you have any ideas or suggestions, let me know in the comment section below. Another thing I need to finish up is the back panel. I was going to do this for this video, but until I have a new power supply mounted, I didn't want to put any of that work in just to have to rip it out and start over. For the back panel, I'll use angle aluminum as tie down points and use a piece of sheet aluminum to make the back panel itself. I'll measure everything out, mark it out on the sheet, and cut it out. I'll also need to drill a bunch of vent holes to allow air to escape the back, because right now temps are acceptable due largely in part to the open back. Another option for this is to use some sort of metal mesh, which I also think may be a good option. If you guys have any good ideas for this, again, let me know in the comments. I loved all the feedback you gave me in part 1, some of which I used in this video. Speaking of your feedback, a lot of you wanted to know how this system performs, so I went ahead and benchmarked about half a dozen games to give you a good idea of the abilities of this PC. And one ability of this PC is for it to be able to manage all of my passwords thanks to today's sponsor, Dashlane. A few months ago, I had 2 of my accounts hacked basically simultaneously. I didn't lose my accounts or have anything stolen, but lo and behold, both accounts use the exact same password. This was a wake-up call for me and made me realize I needed a better system for creating and storing passwords. And that's where today's sponsor, Dashlane, comes in. Dashlane can generate, store, and autofill passwords with ease, and can even securely store payment and shipping information. This is great for someone like me who is constantly forgetting passwords and having to reset them. Dashlane's free on one device forever, but opting for Dashlane Premium allows you to use it across all your devices and gives you a lot of added features. Beyond just managing your passwords, Dashlane has a VPN built in which allows you to browse the web safely and securely. There's also a dark web monitoring feature which allows you to see if any of your information has been stolen and is up for sale on the dark web. And one of my favorite features is being able to change passwords with just one click. By using my link in the description, you'll get a 30-day free trial of Dashlane Premium risk-free because you don't even need to put in any payment information when you sign up. Doing this not only gives you access to a great product, but it also is a free way to support the channel because sponsors like Dashlane are one of the main reasons I'm able to bring you this content. Again, make sure to click the link in the description for a risk-free 30-day trial and to support the channel. Thanks again to Dashlane for sponsoring this video, and now let's get back to your normally scheduled content. So one last thing before I go over benchmarks, which is to quickly remind you of the parts that are inside the system. For the CPU, I went with the Ryzen 5 3600. This is the best bang for the buck gaming CPU and it performs amazingly. It has 6 cores, 12 threads, and overall is a great choice for mid and even high-end gaming. Cooling the CPU is the CryoRig C7 low-profile CPU cooler. This works well, but if you want to save a few bucks, going with the stock cooler also would work fine. The CPU is sitting inside of the B350 ITX Fatality from ASRock. Great bang for the buck, but I will probably upgrade this if I do decide to go the water cooling route. This system has 16GB of DDR4 RAM at 3200 MHz and has a 500GB NVMe SSD as a boot drive. Finally, powering the system is a 550W EVGA Supernova G3, which is 80 plus gold and fully modular. Overall, this isn't the most high-end system ever, but it's pretty darn powerful and is pretty much the most powerful system I've ever built. For benchmarks, I did some AAA AAA games and a few more popular esports titles. Starting off with Shadow of the Tomb Raider at 1440p max settings, the system receives an average of 96 FPS, which is pretty great for maxing out a modern game like this at 1440p. In Far Cry 5 at 1440p max, we're looking at an average of just over 100 FPS, which again is great for a AAA title. In Borderlands 3, again at 1440p max, we saw a 67 FPS average, which isn't as good as the others, but still very smooth and comfortably above 60 FPS. In Fortnite at 1440p pro settings, I saw an average of around 250 FPS, which was a super smooth experience. And finally, in PUBG, maxed out at 1440p, the system received a 121 FPS average. As you can see, this PC shreds through any game you throw at it. Now, I did test everything at 1440p, and looking back at it, testing at 4K may have made more sense because of the prevalence of 4K TVs and because this is meant to be an HTPC, but that's something I may explore in part 3. In terms of thermals, things were definitely a little toasty, but it wasn't anything crazy. Under load, the GPU seemed to stay in the mid to upper 70s, and the CPU stayed around the low 80s. These were both at stock speed, so doing any major overclocking probably would require water cooling. Overall, I'm really happy with how this system's coming out so far, and I hope you guys like it too. I've said it a few times throughout the video, but again, if you have any suggestions, let me know in the comment section below. So yeah guys, I think this wraps this video up. Thanks again to Dashlane for sponsoring this video, and if you guys like this video, make sure to give it a thumbs up. Please consider subscribing, and this is Matt from Tech by Matt, signing out.